Recording. All right, welcome back, everyone. We are talking about ICIC, the intentional city in the clouds. I've been invited by Ananda to give a little presentation on both background and introduction to ICIC, which I'm super excited to do. I thought I'd give a little bit of my story kind of in slide form for starters. Let me give this a go. This is a slideshow that I've given for an organization I have the privilege of leading called Food Healers of Whidbey Island, which I'll get to in a few minutes. But first, some background. It's important for me that we look at very honestly, where we're at. Where are we? Where are we on the map? Right? And from a big picture perspective, whether you're talking about the point that Michael just made a few minutes ago about, hey, they're still doing all this shipping, they're still chopping down the rainforest, people are still starving. So, and beyond that, we've got some much more acute problems, which I'll talk about in a minute. But the bottom line is we got to acknowledge reality. We're in the middle of a losing football game, and it isn't pretty. And one of the aspects of this losing football game that I focus on a lot is that global average temperature is rising, right? Now, Michael and I look at cryptocurrencies. He looks at it a lot more than I do, but one of the things he tells me to do repeatedly is, Jamen, zoom out. Don't just focus on what's happening right now in the minute or hour by hour basis. Zoom out and look at a larger time scale. I mean, is this just a cyclical thing? Well, if we zoom out and look at it over the course of decades, whoa, we are really spiking now. And we cannot take much more of this. We're basically in the vertical portion of the exponential right now. And my dear friend, Professor Guy McPherson, is as far as I'm concerned, the world's leading authority on summing this all up. And at last count, he's identified no fewer than 67 self-reinforcing feedback loops driving this exponential spike. It's going up, it's going up, it's accelerating, it's going faster. It's the major contributor to the burning of the Amazon, to the burning of forests all around the world, from Australia to California. And we need a big Monty Python foot to stomp on that exponential, right? A big pink Monty Python foot to stomp on it, okay? We're not gonna tame that exponential with, touch-free massage and, let's all just get together and meditate about a cooler planet. No, we need some stronger medicine than that touchy-feely stuff. We need to stomp on it. And the best solution that I know of to stomp on it is actually going right to the source, the sun. See, greenhouse gases are great at retaining heat, but the source of the heat is actually the sun. It's not the greenhouse gases. They're causing the heat. The greenhouse gases are retaining it. But we have an opportunity to actually effectively dim down the sun, and that's through what we call solar radiation management. There's a lot of ways of doing it. The best way I know of is using vast arrays of floating mirrors in the ocean, whether on the equator or very strategically positioned around the Arctic. This is a picture of Dr. Yatow at Harvard, who's been pioneering this, a brilliant guy. He was introduced to me by Professor Guy McPherson. And so that's the closest thing we've got to a foot right now to stomp on that exponential and really put it into place. And I've spent much of the last few years studying this, talking about it, trying to wake people up. And so what kind of response have I been getting? We've got the solutions. How about it, people? Shall we get excited and go do it? And I'm getting a lot of this. As much as I talk about it, people don't really seem able to see it or hear it. So what's missing from all this? And, if they're not willing to look at these solutions, what are they looking at? And the answer that I keep hitting on, that Michael was expounding upon, we've all been expounding upon, is this, what I call the all-day Monopoly game. Ever since we were kids in the United States, we learned this really fun game, and it's all about hoarding and generating assets to generate rent. And we charge so much rent that we literally force the other players out of the game. And that might all be all fine and well, except that it's turning us into assholes. And we just get so focused on ourselves. And whether we're this rich guy in a fancy new Audi, buying a McMansion, or this poor guy, you know, chopping down the rainforest to survive and feed his family, right? So this is one of the big problems. We're destroying the planet. But another big problem with this all-day Monopoly game is that if you lose at this all-day Monopoly game, the penalty for losing is death by starvation. Painful, humiliating, just beyond words. How on earth are we letting this all happen? So I started talking a lot about that and saying, hey, you know, what can we do? Here's my best barometer is my mother, my mom, Carolyn. If she likes it, then I know I'm onto something. And she's really digging this idea about feeding everyone. But still, I'm having a lot of trouble getting through even to my own neighbors here on Whidbey Island. Hey, how do we do this? So I've come up with a solution, or we've come up with a solution, which is to feed everyone nutritious plant-based stews, super delicious, immune boosting, and there's so many different varieties. The plant kingdom is just so diverse, way more diverse than the animal kingdom, than the poor animals that we're chopping up and eating. The solution is very simple. Buy massive quantities of food in bulk. Lentils are a superfood. Michael, Gaio, and I both love lentils, and you probably do too. And we go to the store and we buy a pound of lentils for, you know, $2 or $3, and we cook it up at home, and it cooks up this giant pot, and we think, wow, that was a really good deal. For just $2 or $3, we get all these lentils. That's great. You know, call it $2 a pound. And we think it's a really sweet deal. Well, if you go up to Saskatchewan and you buy it by the rail car, 40-ton rail car, the price works out to 6.5 cents a pound. Food, to a first approximation, is free. Plant food, plant-based food, to a first approximation, is actually free. So what's the holdup? The holdup is logistics. We need to buy it in bulk, cook it in bulk, distribute it. We've got the technology to distribute cold store, you know, basically liquids at close to 0 degrees centigrade so that you have no degradation. Milk is super sensitive, so the technology was really developed around milk. Here's the inside of a milk truck. Plant-based foods are much more forgiving than dairy and meat. And so our concept is very simple. Let's kick this off in a bang in a place like Los Angeles or the Bay Area, where we have a Tesla truck pulling a space-age looking trailer. It'll look like it's food from another planet or something, food from the future, but it's really food for the future. And we can distribute this in bulk to everyone extremely economically, in such a way that the donations will actually exceed the costs of making the food and delivering it. Rewind. What did that guy just say? Let's rewind so we can repeat it again. By doing this on such a massive scale, where the costs are so low per unit, you know, we're talking like 25 cents a meal, people will be so blown away by the efficiencies and the generosity that they will donate. Rich people will donate and poor people will donate. And the donations will exceed the costs of buying, preparing, and delivering the food. It's as simple as that. So we've got these ready solutions. We've been pioneering this stuff. There I am in the middle in Rosamond, California, a poor community in the Mojave Desert in Southern California. We said, let's try this out. We fed the whole community for free. Everyone loved it. And it's just such a no-brainer, super economical. We even created an economic model talking about money and et cetera. Triple C companies, it's actually a standard. We've created the beginnings of an organization to manage it, et cetera. The basic idea is really simple. Triple C companies donate 100% of their profits, not 100% of their revenues. Think Newman's Own, a very profitable company. They just take all their profits and donate it to charity after they've paid their electricity, their employees, packaging, raw materials, et cetera. So it works. It's a proven model. You know, pre-COVID, it was like, hey, let's fund community cafes with it. Post-COVID, we need to deliver the food. So basically a community cafe on wheels. And so we've worked with my brother, Takuya Sato of the Sato family in Japan, which has the longest legacy, the oldest legacy of hemp in the world, going back deep into the Edo period, centuries ago. And they became the first Triple C company. So we started working on, we said, hey, let's explore this, let's share it. But the problem I keep running into over and over, no matter how great these ideas are, whether it's solar radiation management to cool the planet or feeding everyone to get people liberated from this all-day Monopoly game, people aren't listening. And I'm like, what's the problem? So I finally hit on it. I didn't hit on it, but my friend Rick Steves, who you all presumably know, the travel guide, he has constantly promoted it's time for a conversation around marijuana and around other things. And the principle we're hitting on is before people are ready to listen, they first need to feel heard. It needs to be a conversation, not a lecture. So I've been lecturing and lecturing and lecturing and lecturing and wondering why the hell aren't people listening? It's because they haven't been heard. So President Vicente Fox and I teamed up several years back, this is in 2013, and started a very public conversation about ending prohibition that changed the course of history. This press conference in particular in Seattle changed the course of history. It forced the hand of the Obama administration to give us a green light to legalizing. We went on an international tour, culminating in a 3-day symposium in Mexico, in the heart of the drug war, committing to run them out of the business. And the drug cartel, the response was not pretty.
But Jamen, your audio keeps going in and out.
How about now? Is it okay now?
Good now.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks. So yeah, my earbuds ran out of juice, so I shifted to regular. But anyway, so at this symposium, this was the #1 story for 2 days straight in Mexico and much of Latin America. We had representatives from Uruguay there, and within a few months, Uruguay became the first country in the world to legalize cannabis. And so bottom line, the conversation is the key, not the lecture, but the conversation. And so what I've been doing here's a sign. We've been a work in progress that I then displayed on the main highway of Whidbey Island. Climate, food, safety, and the future of life on Earth. It's time for a conversation. And we've been having lots of conversations. And how do we start and all that? And we've got the conversation.cc, which is where we are right now. And where I want to go with this is, and I'm slowly but surely getting Whidbey Island on board with this really radical concept that we can actually feed everyone for free. And where I'm going with this now, if we take a step back, I'm going to stop screen sharing for a second just so I can see your faces and you can see mine, and Ananda and I and all of us here have been really harmonizing on this concept that before people are willing to listen, they first need to be heard. And I've got these ideas about SRM and feeding people and all this. Michael Gaio's got ideas about currency. Uncle Frank's got ideas about SRM. Ananda's got ideas about creating a fund. We've all got ideas. We all need to be heard, right? So how do we do it?
how do we create a safe space where we can all be heard? We've talked about the dysfunctions of basically the transformational community, to give it a word, the Zoomosphere, et cetera, and how there's all this competition and separation, and different people are trying to play king of the hill and say, my platform, my community, me, right? Which again is a carryover of this all-day Monopoly game that we're trapped in. We got indoctrinated as kids. We're trapped in it. It applies to money. It applies to credit, getting the credit for creating the best. And it's become, oh, sorry, I've been flicking this thing. I better put it aside. And it's become such an illness that, as I mentioned before, within the transformational community, I've been the target of 2 character assassination attempts from perhaps one of the most significant transformational communities out there, right? This is like Mad Magazine, spy versus spy. We're killing each other, right? Rather than working together. So what the hell is going on? And how do we get out of this trap of this all-day Monopoly game that's pervaded everything from money and land and meat and animal agriculture, all the way to transformational communities? So putting our heads together over the last few weeks, we have hit upon a big idea, which is that one way out of this mess is to go up. Up where? And here's where I'll go back onto some slides. Back up to an intentional city. We all know about intentional communities. These are the next couple images are from Jacques Fresco. Thank you, Ananda, for bringing this to our attention last week. What if we created not yet another intentional community, but a whole intentional city? In this case, in the clouds. Think Empire Strikes Back, Lando Calrissian. I need to get a slide of that up here. But an intentional city in the clouds where all these different intentional communities can come and set up shop and live and work together in harmonious ways. What might that look like? I don't know. But anyway, these are some conceptual drawings of intentional cities made by Jacques Fresco. A lot of them have this very circular kind of format. And at the center, not surprisingly, there is a central sort of hub, right? And that's a very important part of it, as we'll talk about in a little bit. Here's a picture of Jacques Fresco. And in fact, so yes, there's a hub there in the center, but then there's also these other kind of towers here and there. So there doesn't have to necessarily be one central hub. Now, I'm going to shift gears in a couple of minutes and go to some hand-drawn slides that I've just drawn up in the last few days. But one of the things that I want to emphasize is that at the center, what if at the center there were a bunch of us looking throughout the entire horizon? So imagine this city, this intentional city in the clouds. Imagine there was like Zoom meetings in every one of those, offices or rooms that you see here in this conceptual city. What if there's different Zoom meetings on different topics and they all work together, but they're all pushing towards some central thing? What might that central thing be? And the best image, my favorite image for this central thing, is the Human Towers of Barcelona, where you see all this intention focused on this center and all the support coming radially from the outside. Most of the people in this picture are the supporting community, pushing. And just look at those arms. Look at the bare arms. They form these lines. It's like a root system of a tree, all pushing, supporting the ascent of humanity in this center. So these are just some images I'd like to ask everyone to kind of keep in mind as we shift gears in the conversation. And I'm going to draw some pictures, but before I do, let me just go on mute and pass the talking feather around, see if anyone has either any questions or comments before I take it to the next level and take us into the heart of one perspective on this intentional city in the clouds. Going on mute.
Oh, thank you, Jamen, for doing the pre-show of this, because I know that your passions have been about feeding everybody and solar radiation. And I'm keeping in mind all the other millions of people who are married to some cause, and they would be giving their slideshow at that point, and they would be listening and being heard about their perspective. I'm thinking primarily of Mr. Michael Tellinger, my hero. He's in my phone. I know him. I brought him to Eugene, Oregon, and we started an Ubuntu village there. He heads up the whole Ubuntu contribution organization, and he's just come out with some new slides on his perspective of building one small town. Go out on YouTube and look at it. It's very amazing. Well, he's got ways of starting a whole new small town, with ideas that he's studied. He's for decades. He's put his whole life into it. But he would start the slideshow off with his Ubuntuism, his contributionism perspective, and if someone from the Zeitgeist movement were here, they'd start it off with their perspective on how they see the solutions and that. But the thing that we have that's next, which is really exciting, and that's the part I'm waiting for here is some solutions, and I want to get to that before we run out of time. I really am looking forward to you explaining to the group here what you explained in a slideshow that I saw previously to this call, which was an actual drawing of how it is we get away from the Monopoly game and make it into a new game. And I'll let you carry it on from there. But let's keep the rest of the remarks really short because we want to see what's coming up next as solutions. Go ahead, anybody?
Yeah, I have a couple comments to make. Just by the way, I'm not 100% clear on this, but the actual game Monopoly, did we know, there's a secret history to it. And it was actually invented by a feminist in New York City.
Oh, whoa.
And I'm pretty sure that her intentions, I read this somewhere, her intentions were to demonstrate some of the corruptibility of the current game. All right? Not many people know this. So you know that. So the Monopoly game as a symbol of representing the game we're playing was actually made to show us the game we're playing. And the rules can be changed, right? The rules of the game can be changed. Also, hey, I'm aware of is a Jacques Fresco. I forget his last name. Yeah, I'm aware of his project, and also Oroville's another one.
Oh yes,
yes. A really great experimental intentional communities can be going on since at least the 1960s or 1950s. Mm-hmm. Also with this amazing center, Matra Mandir at the center of it, where it's a meditation building you can go into. That's at the center of the whole thing. And there's a new project emerging in the Middle East that many people don't know about called NEOM. I'll put the link in the thing. These are like backed by billionaires. They're building a really progressive new urban thing out in the desert there that is looking really good. They're putting all the different sectors in to make they're basically wanting to create the New York City of the 21st century, but backed by new qualities of that would enrich a new humanity. So they're not repeating old patterns. I'll put the link in the chat. And also getting back to Monopoly game too, I just want to reflect again an idea that in my perspective, the Monopoly game and the money game is a mask on a deeper game, and that's called the power game. And the power game has been going on for a very, very, very long time for humanity, way before money ever came around. And the money game, in some ways, masks that other game. That's why we need to see through the money game and look at the underlying dynamics, right?
And you will. That's what's coming up next.
And yeah. Okay, well, I have more thoughts, but I'll let you continue.
You'll say you'll have many more thoughts after you see this next explanation, I promise you. All right, Jamen, let's just go on with the slideshow then, please.
Very good, very good. Really appreciate everyone's contributions, including in the chat. So what I'm going to show next is, I thought And thank you so much for everyone for your comments on the Monopoly game and all that. It's not as black and white as I'm making it out, but I believe that it's just a really good metaphor for where we're at. We're basically trapped in this game of individual hoarding for individual survival, because again, the penalty for losing at the game of hoarding is death by starvation, which is a pretty nasty way to go, I would say. So we're all, consciously and or subconsciously terrified of that. So we hoard to prevent that from happening. And of course, we try to go to the opposite extreme of having lots of money and land and, houses and boats and planes and whatever else we want. So we've been speculating, what if we could create a totally different game? And it's often very instructive to look at the two possible bookends. So we got one bookend of just extreme hoarding, Bill Gates's and Jeff Bezos's and Elon Musk's, and at the other end, 1 billion people starving to death. What if we went to the other bookends? Let's call that Monopoly, just really simple, the game. What if we created another game where if you flip the first two letters of Monopoly, M-O, and then Nopoly, if you flip those and it started, instead of M-O, it was O-M, and the rest of the word is the same, you get the word Omnopoly. So instead of mono, one person or one organization owning and controlling everything, talking about concentration of power, thank you, Michael, what if we had an Omnopoly, where it was all of us, and not just all of us humans, but all of Mother Earth, and even beyond into the spiritual realm, the cosmos, all of us seeing and behaving and acting as a whole and looking out for the good of the whole. Thank you, good of the whole. What if we played a whole different game? What might that look like? Well, let's explore it. Let's consider. Well, instead of a square board, we might have something more like a circle or more like a spiral, right? Well, let's explore that a bit. In this case, it's sliced up. This particular image is sliced up into 8 slices, but it doesn't have to be limited to 8. It could be any number of slices. But what if the game worked like this? Wait a second. Okay, here we go. What if each of these slices, I'll just highlight this one in green. I'm going to call it a slice, just like a slice of a pie. What if each slice represented one fundamental topic of importance that we really needed to master? And in the end, we need to master all of the slices in the pie. And somewhat arbitrarily, but I really dig the number 3. What if each of these slices were in turn segmented into 3 phases? Phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Okay. Go all around the pie, from the first, anyone in the middle, all the way to the very end. They're all sliced into these 3 segments. And what if the game were to master each slice, and within each slice, master each of the 3 phases, 1, 2, 3? What if that were the game? Well, what might these topics include? So I've got a short list here on the left. There's actually 9 of them. Let's just imagine this as a progression. So we start with human needs, right? I often make the analogy, if we're sitting in an airplane with our mother next to us, and there's a failure in cabin pressure, what do they always tell you to do? Even though it may go against your instincts. I want to protect my mother first. No, put on your own oxygen mask first. So that then you're not gasping for air while you're trying to help your mother and then you both die of suffocation. No, put on your own oxygen mask first. So let's start with humanity putting on her oxygen mask first, so that we can finally, what a relief. Okay. Now, Mom, here, boom. Mother Earth put on her oxygen mask. Right now, as long as we're trapped in an all-day Monopoly game where the penalty is death by starvation, We're consciously and subconsciously groping for our own oxygen mask. So why don't we just get it right the first time? Take care of human needs. Boom, number one, human needs. Including line number 2, the needs of community. We don't just have needs as an individual, we have needs as a community. And then all the way to the 3rd line, needs of humanity as a whole. What are the needs of our species? We need to come together as a species. We hear it every day. We hear it multiple times a day, but we haven't figured out how to do it yet. Okay, well, these are clearly 3 things, 3 big segments of the pie. So these might be these first 3 slices of the pie, all about human needs, fundamentally. Human all the way to humanity, okay? Beyond humanity, well, we're one of several billion species. So now that we've taken care of our species, now let's look at the other species. So line number 4, species needs. The needs of each of the other species. Other put in quotes for emphasis. Other. They're different from us. Finally, now see how it's a continual expansion. So now that we're looking at the needs of individual species, we can look at the needs of their home, their ecosystem. So what are the needs of ecosystems? And then finally, all the way to Mother Earth as a whole. Planetary needs. And thank you, Kala, thank you, Michael Gaio, thank you, everyone, for thinking beyond our planet into the cosmos, spirituality and the cosmic. Let's really be complete. So that's a whole slice unto itself. Great, so in the first 7 of 9 on this list, we've covered basically what are our needs? What are the needs of life itself, et cetera, et cetera. But again, in an organized fashion. The final 2 say, okay, we've got this great cataloging of needs. We need to meet all these needs. How the heck are we going to do it? What goals should we establish first, second, third, right? And what's the strategy? How are we going to do this? Where do we want to get to and how are we going to get there? So let's have that conversation. And that will then lead us to getting more granular. The final line, in many ways, the punchline, what are the solutions we need? And how do we plan for all these different solutions? In what sequence? And how do we get down to the brass tacks of implementation? You know, who's going to pay for it? Who's going to do it? Who's going to volunteer, et cetera, et cetera. So any quick questions or comments on that short list of 9 slices spanning the entire circle come spiral?
I have a comment, Jamen.
Yes, Michael.
I love this. I like it a lot. And I think what you have listed as far as these sectors is great and perhaps even perfect. And my only comment would just be more of a question of have you, we might want to consider comparing this to, I forget what the name of it is, Barbara Marx Hubbard had I think it was 12 sectors of society.
Wheel of Creation or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it just reminded me of that. Something to consider.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, I'm definitely not the first person to put together some holistic thing like this. I'm just doing it again from my perspective. This is, the world.
Yeah, I think it's great. This is different. This is different. This might work even better. So I'm just saying.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah. So, and it's again a logical progression. So human needs, again, if it were up to me, this is Jamen's perspective. Oh, Kala has a question. Yes, Kala.
I love it. It's brilliant that your mind is going. I feel like you're talking about the inner community. I feel like everybody's contributions, Ananda's and yours and every one of us, it's all going into the cloud that's like this giant magnet that is alchemizing the new world and the new vision. And it's all like neural networks coming together, creating this collective mind's new idea, which is really awesome. I mean, because here we are, it's these minds having these conversations and they're all collectives. And we're all having the conversation at the same time in different places, in different boxes, and yet the cloud is collecting it all. So just that's the psyche of humanity. What is it? What the Jung's collective unconscious? We haven't gone much further. We're still living it. It's the ancient and the future now. I love what you're doing. I love meeting you all. I've been on Zoom now since 8 in the morning. It's about 3 something. And it's 3 o'clock. My brain is just saying, no. So I need to breathe. Lots of love. It's wonderful to meet you all. Great enthusiasm, great vision, great spirit. Take care.
Thank you, Kala, and come again. We'll be back on Thursday for another full day of exciting introspection, development, and conversation. So come on back anytime.
What time do you start?
11 a.m. Pacific. And if you'd like to be on the mailing list, please just drop your email into the chat. Happy to add you to the mailing list.
I did it at the beginning of all.
Oh, you did? Okay, great. Then I'll add that.
It's there.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kala.
Thank you. Take care. I like your pie.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a slice. Have more than one. All right, beautiful. Thanks everyone for your inputs. And I'll continue here with the sharing. So again, if it were up to me, which it's not, thankfully, but if it were, I would say, hey, let's start with human needs, put our own oxygen mask on first so we can finally focus on mother instead of gasping for air. The first phase, I would make it very simple. What are the basics for staying alive? Food, water, shelter. Does that cover all your needs? No, but it'll keep you alive. Let's at least for starters, raise the damn floor on this all-day Monopoly game from death by starvation to, okay, so you don't have any paper money, but you're eating well and you got shelter and a shower and, et cetera, et cetera, okay? Then from there, the second phase of the pie, if you will, is other basic needs beyond food, water, shelter, healthcare, transportation, education, libraries, internet, access to wildlife and open space and hiking and all kinds of good stuff, yoga, you name it, okay? And then finally, phase 3, higher needs, right? Many of which are centered around community and the needs of community. So now, the next on the list is needs of community. So this is really a pointer from the first slice in the pie to the second slice in the pie, community needs. And we can break these down. I'm not going to go into more detail here, but there's local needs from family, neighborhood, town, township to regional needs, including all the way to national, and then finally planetary. We need to come together as a species. How are we going to do it? So this is kind of the progression. And then finally, needs of humanity, which I haven't even filled in anything for yet because I haven't really thought about it too much. I'm kind of stuck on square one. But the game of Omnopoly is, what if we found some sort of a logical progression, right, from the first slice of the pie to the second and third? And, what if there were, I don't know what it would look like. We'd have to speculate on it. But what if maybe we started here, and before going deeper into human needs beyond food, water, shelter, we said, hey, let's at least cover some of the basics of all the slices in the pie, and then we can get to higher human needs, and so that we kind of start to address all these in parallel. It's just a thought. Maybe that would be the best way, or maybe it's best to just say, hey, no, let's do human, really take care of our oxygen mask, and then we can start to take care of mother's oxygen mask and kind of sweep our way this way. But in either case, just consider this one fundamental difference between Omnopoly and Monopoly. It's not about ownership. It's not like, hey, I'm going to own this chunk of the pie and charge you rent for stopping by. It's omni. It's all of us. right? What if we look out for the needs of all of us in a systematic way, hence 1 through 9. So, and this gets us to, the final two slices, or after we've kind of cataloged all the different needs. Okay, what are the goals? What are the specific goals? And what's the strategy, right? And then, from there, what's the plan involving which solutions in which order, and exactly how do we implement them? If it were up to me, and thankfully it's not, but if it were, I'd say, hey, food first, food, water, shelter, right? But starting with food, I'm okay with people living in tents as long as they're eating. I'm not okay with people not eating. So let's literally just food, water, shelter, start with food and water, right? Shelter, we'll come to that, right? But this gives us focus, food first. And like I said, it can actually be profitable. Done right, the donations will exceed the costs. I firmly believe that. Having operated community cafes and worked on this with a bunch of people from a bunch of perspectives. So food first, followed by, again, this is the strategy and the plan I would propose, followed by all the other fundamental needs of first people, and then communities, and finally humanity as a whole. And so this is thoroughly putting on humanity's oxygen mask. So these first two segments of this strategy, not to be confused with these first two segments here, what I'm really saying is do food as the first segment in the strategy. This oval is the second segment in the strategy, all the other human needs, all the way to needs of humanity as a whole. Really take care of humanity's oxygen mask. So basically thoroughly cover this whole segment of the pie. Boom, done. Actually, I made a mistake a second ago when I said it only covered the first two. 1, 2, right? And then, though I can't draw around the words, basically 3 would be from species needs all the way down through beyond this world, spirituality and the cosmic. So it's just an overall high level strategy. Food, people, all other human needs. And then the third slice of the pie, I write double E for abbreviation, standing for everything else, everything else. Now, with food first, focusing on plant-based foods, we actually already do a massive check mark on this whole section of everything else called stopping animal agriculture. What's the number one force behind devastating the Amazon beyond planetary overheating? Animal agriculture. That's where they're chopping down and burning the Amazon to make room for the cattle and the soybeans to feed pigs in China, so that nouveau riche Chinese can eat meat 3 meals a day instead of just once a quarter at the Harvest Moon Festival or whatever. Now, shortly thereafter, after animal agriculture, would be SRM, as I talked about at the very beginning of my presentation. And then whatever's most urgent after that, and after that, and after that, and on and on and on and on, right? All the way to, the end, right, of addressing all the needs of ecosystem, species, and planet. All right, let's take a deep dive into SRM just for a second. How would we go about SRM? Like I talked about this fundamental problem that no one's listening. Well, they're not listening because they're focused on the all-day Monopoly game. So that's why we got to take care of these first two segments first. Take care of people so they can say, you know what, take all my paper money. I don't care. This is a boring, stupid game, right? I've got all my needs met. I don't need to buy anything, right? And I even thought up a cryptocurrency like, all right, so you don't have any money, you got all your needs met. What if you want to go for a ride on a boat? So I came up with Boatcoin along as a cryptocurrency. I've come up with a list of about 30 cryptocurrencies we want to launch. So Michael, we'll have to talk about that. But literally Boatcoin. So maybe if I feed enough wildlife or something, I accumulate enough Boatcoin, I can go on a big ride to Hawaii on somebody else's boat, right? Anyway, we'll get to all that. But let's do a deep dive into SRM. Again, 1, 2, 3. right? First, second, third, beginning, middle, end. Every story has a beginning, middle, end. So this kind of maps to how humanity relates to reality, in my humble perspective. What's the beginning of SRM? Is it the technology? Is it, you know, the money? No, none of that. Socialization. Let's talk about it. As Rick Steve said, it's time for a conversation. Let's have a conversation about SRM. Let's address the holistic design of it. I keep hearing all this, well, yeah, but what about this? What about that? Okay, let's have a holistic design so that we address all the buts. Yet another cryptocurrency I want us to launch is actually called Buttcoin, but not with 2 T's. Don't hang up, not with 2 T's, 1 T. If you have a good butt, you get a coin, and it'll actually be a numbered coin sequence. Buttcoin number 1, Buttcoin number 2. Who's got the hottest butt? In search of the hottest butt. You know, let's address it. If there's an issue, put it on the table, and if it's a good butt, you get a coin, and then we get to address it, right? Okay. Holistic design, modeling, finally political. How do we get people to agree to do this? Until we get the hell sorted out, there ain't going to be no implementation. Phase 2 is implementation. One word, implementation, done. Phase 3 is not just data gathering, what I call omniscient data gathering, gathering data on everything impacted, all right? Enhancing our modeling, doing pattern matching, leading towards optimal modeling, and collective intelligence trending towards collective superintelligence, which includes the intelligence of models, AI, pattern matching, deep learning, all that good stuff, okay? Anyway, that's just a quick little detour into SRM so that you get at least get a flavor for what each of these projects might look like at a high level. You know, we start with the human side and then implementation, and then basically go to ongoing maintenance, for lack of a better word, but really smart ongoing maintenance. So now here, so one way you could think about this graphically is, okay, here's 1, 2, 3 for the strategy for all this, right? And then think about this SRM pie as being something like this. Think of it as a wedge that's sort of emanating, kind of fractal-like, out of the middle of this third section here, this third phase here. So let's, with that in mind, let's scroll on down past all these funky ideas and just consider that out of any slice of the pie of 3 segments, you can have all this fractal-like growths, crystalline growth, right? Think of them like it freezes overnight and you go outside to your cat water dish or whatever, and you see all this cool fractal-like pattern. That's exactly what we're talking about here. Anything that needs more detail, break it down, add a slice and break it down, 1, 2, 3, beginning, middle, end, right? And that's basically what I wanted to show about my thoughts about, but bringing it back to the beginning so that we can kind of know the place for the first time. If we bring this back to the city in the clouds, the intentional city in the clouds, and back to the original slides, what if the game of Omnopoly, what if the board were literally the entire city in the clouds, and each of these sections of the board, right, was actually a section of the city that was organized into phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and you have different people, different groups bringing their passions and expressions. Oh, I'm really into permaculture for feeding everyone. Great, come to phase 1 of slice 1, coordinate 1, 1. There's a home for you, and we want to hear what you have to say. So they get to be heard, right? So imagine that the game board is the city, the intentional city. That is the game board. All right. So there's only one part of this board that I haven't addressed, and that's the very center. What about the hub? Well, what if the hub looked something like this? Imagine that all the slices of the pie, just imagine that base of, you know, a couple hundred people all pushing together. was sliced into 9 different slices, first, second, third. All of them are supporting fundamentally the same thing, which is a fundamental mission of saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth. And that mission is somehow crystallized into a synthesis, which is the human tower in the middle. And imagine that synthesis is boiled down to literally a 30-second meme of a short story. You know, I could tell the story of stone soup in 30 seconds. You know, 3 soldiers, everybody's hungry. They brought about a big pot, filled it with water and a stone. Everyone's sitting around, duh. And then people start contributing food. Next thing you know, you got this raging pot and everyone's happy. Any story that's worth telling can be told in 30 seconds. So imagine that this is there's a cyclical nature to this game, that we traverse the whole spiral, take the best that we've got. It may be incomplete, but whatever the best that you got, tell us the story in 30 seconds. And we keep refreshing it. There's a 30-second version. There's another team that's of the storyteller cast that says, that's great, but what about the 3-minute version? So let's refresh that, maybe once every couple hours or so. And then maybe once a day or every other day, we refresh the 30-minute version of the story. So at different time scales, we refresh the 30-second synopsis, the 3-minute somewhat expanded synopsis, and then the 30-minute story, which might include this whole presentation, for example. Let's say this was the winning story at a given moment in its evolution. And so then talk about a juicy morsel. Hey, have you seen the latest 30-second synthesis from ICIC? You got to see it, and then you will see too, right? So imagine the whole city is designed around this game of supporting the synthesis, supporting and developing an integrated, holistic, and yet very, very tight synthesis. And then let's say somebody comes along and says, I see all this but, and they have such a good but that they throw it on the table that they get butt coin number 7. And then everyone wants to know. It's like, you know, whenever somebody wins a Nobel Prize in physics, everybody wants to know what it is. My Uncle Frank, who's on this call, he'll check it out immediately, right? He's contributed to 2 different Nobel Prizes in physics. His name is literally on 2, I mean, not as the titular holder, but his work supported and is referenced in 2 different Nobel Prize. He's going to read it immediately, and he might have a but, right? That but, when you get butt coin number 7, that's like a mini Nobel Prize in but. And then as soon as somebody wins that, everybody, like Uncle Frank, swarms around it and says, okay, let me see if I can address the but, right? All eyes on the but. But I'm thinking about that Eddie Murphy song from the 80s. In your butt. Anyway, so through the appropriate use of, dare I say, currency, right? Buttcoin is currency. Everyone wants to know what's current, what's the hot butt of the moment. People will swarm around it. Talk about a use of currency. People will swarm around it and debug the butt. Get the bugs out of the butt so that we can continue. Let there be multiple butts in parallel. I got no problem issuing thousands of Buttcoin, right? So we're just kind of dreaming into this now. And I just feel like a kindergartner with finger paint. I just kind of keep wanting to paint and paint and paint and express and all that. Anyway, I've had a long time at the Talking Feather. You've all been very generous with your listening. I think I've gotten the idea across, at least the 30-minute version. So with that, I'm going to pass the Talking Feather. Ananda, please jump in whenever you feel like it. And then if you want to be in the queue, just raise your hand. Love to hear from everyone. Ananda, what do you think?
Wow. Well, you know, it's really time we start talking about solutions and goals and opportunities and universal language. I absolutely love this idea. I just made a recommendation in the chat about Perry Gruber's design of copiosis, and he starts rewarding people for doing good, and he makes a whole economy out of that. You can hear his show on my radio station, futurenowradio.com. But you know, you were talking about rewarding people and economy and that. He's created an economy around around doing good stuff, and you get paid for that. And it's an amazing process. He's put many years giving birth to that. And if he were on here now, he would be talking about the human need of people contributing and feeling good. But so you hit on a couple things. First of all, as we agreed, people need to be heard. And so when we designed this process of building this new system, we broke it into 3 parts. One is the architecture of actually building the system, making the board game happen, or coming up with these ideas. The second one is just welcoming and listening. And on that day, on Thursday, you can come in with your copiosis or your you know, Ubuntu contributionism or whatever it is, and we get to hear what you're about and what you're married to and what you were called into being. And then the interesting thing would be that once they've been heard, we can put them on the Omnopoly board and go, where are you on this board? And let's start building some structure around what it is that you put your entire life passions into, and how does that fit into the solutions. And so I love it that we got to the place in this conversation about what the solutions were. I'm sad that we lost a few people before we got to that, but I would like to just recommit that next week on the architecture building time, we put the solutions right up front and then let the discussions come from that. So that's what I have to say. I'm complete. Go ahead and go on with the next, because see, the thing is, what we did was we spent from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock, not just, it was very, very important. We spent 4 or 5 hours speculating what solutions might be, or what the problems are. And I suggest we come away with the solutions right away, and then consult on what the speculations would be. Do it backwards. Okay, so I'm complete. Go ahead with the next cue, which I believe is Michael.
Yes, go
Great,
for it, Michael.
thanks. Hey, Jamen, I love it. I love it, love it, love it. You know, I'm also a big fan of game design, and I think that gamification, that's an actual term. It means to make things game-like, right? I think it's the future. It's actually the future. Games have existed longer than money in human culture. Games have existed for thousands of years. It's heavily hardwired in our neurology to play games, and it's only increasing. You know, just by the way, you know, the game industry out there in the world, you know, all these teenagers playing video games, just recently eclipsed movies and all other entertainment, music, movies, everything else. Games is now the hottest industry, hundreds of billions of dollars a year. And it's been growing on a steady scale for decades, right? Games are the future. I see, you know, I think that even from a philosophical perspective, reality is a game. You know, anytime you have a system with rules, that's a game. And so, you know, we have the money game and the reality game. So thinking in game terms, I'm all on board. I love it. Yeah, and I think I think I love so many aspects of what you talked about in the game. I'm sold into pretty much most of it. I think there could be some tweaking in future conversations, but I think starting with food is a really great idea too. So yeah, I'm all on board. I love it. And I would say, bouncing off of you, Ananda, talking about solutions, here's a proposal I have now, is that, you know, when we're in these conversations, and you're right, we spend hours and hours in these conversations throwing out ideas, and sometimes people are here and sometimes they aren't. And I'm seeing that to increase our traction on getting solutions really built and not getting so much slippage on our conversations, I think one of the first things we could actually build would be something like a, you know, bare bones minimum proposal and democracy system using decentralized systems. You know, this is already being done. There are thousands and thousands of projects out there in the clouds right now on decentralized networks of sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of people congealing around a project idea like this with a proposal system. They can all submit proposals. There's no person in the center. It's a decentralized organization. There's no one in the center. And they all can, anyone, it's called permissionless. That's a key term in this decentralized culture emergent. The term permissionless means that no one needs permission. If you have a computer and fingers to type, you can access the system and you can come up with your idea, you can submit a proposal, and then anyone else on their own timeline, they don't have to be on the Zoom meeting. They can just log in on their time, read the proposals, consider it, and then they can vote on proposals. It's real-time fluid democracy. That's the other term, fluid democracy. In the United States, we have democracy, kind of. It's a corrupt democracy, but it's not fluid. We vote on things like every 4 years or whatever. So slow, so 20th century. We have the technology to have real-time democratic solutions in decentralized ways. So, I'm just saying, I think that would be, in my view, that would be probably a great starting point for any kind of city we're building, because we can go into all kinds of details about, what other solutions we're providing and how the game's designed and all that. But with a bare bones minimum proposal and democracy system that lives outside of the Zoom conference, that's going to give us a lot of traction on really moving forward with this idea and other ideas. So I'm complete.
Well then, let's just get her done.
Yeah. So I'll see what I can do. I'll see if I can pull that together.
Yeah, we need now we need your techie friends to step in and go, okay, here's the board, here's the game,
Yeah.
It's leading to solutions and it's leading to solutions. So how about everybody jump in and let's do this?
Yeah. I'm learning how to build these systems technically. I have other techie friends and they're really busy with other projects. I have my own project too, but I think I would feel good about just providing that really bare bones thing, and then we can just experiment with it. We can see how is it. Again, it's like what Bucky says. It's a new tool we can use, and then we start thinking. Oh wow, we can actually do this in a different way, and when we start thinking differently, right? So I think it's a good place to start, and then we start building the city from that bare bones thing. How cities get built, from the streets start going out, and then the bank shows up and the hotel shows up piece by piece, all modular. It just develops over time, and you add in the pieces you need next, right? You build them as they come.
Jacques Fresco's design and his whole work are just so fascinating to me. I've studied him for many years, but I actually got to go to the Venus Project this last year and donate some of my time there. And one of the things he says, he's talking about physically building these cities and moving people in there. He says, one of the first things that you do about building these cities is you put the technical people in there first. And they do, all of the work that needs to be done, technically. And then he says the next thing, that the first thing we do with the cities that are already existing is we survey our resources. And in my book that I wrote, it's a fictitious story about what if a man named Steve Saylor became president and he runs on the Money Free Party. It's all imaginary. But in my book is very similar to Colin Turner's book called The F Day, standing for Freedom Day. But in my book, the imaginary thing was that the city decided to start building a city based on technology, resources, and time, people having time. And in all actuality, the characters went out into their neighborhood and they started surveying their resources. And Jacques Fresco says that in the future, when we build these new cities that make sense and where all the systems work and they're all built on technology and resources, he said that the old cities that we have now that make no sense will be flattened, and we'll use the resources to rebuild the new cities that make sense. And he says, but one of the first steps to that is to survey your resources. And so in my story, all the elders came back alive. Most elders sit around and play bingo or whatever, bowling or whatever, and they're wasting the mentality, all these brilliant, amazing elders. So in my story, the elders came alive with a mission to survey their neighborhoods, and that would tell them what technology they needed. So for example, they went around and they surveyed how much clothing and food do we have in our neighborhood. And they concluded that they did not need to use technology for the future of their neighborhood to rebuild clothing factories or shoe factories, because they had plenty of that, and it's kind of a funny story, and then it went on into surveying how much copper do we have in a city like New York or like Minneapolis or Chicago. How can we revamp the resources that are already there? And of course the story goes into how much wasted materials do we have on these cities that are dysfunctional, and how can we reset them into a city that makes sense? So anyway, in my story, they start surveying their own resources. That's the first step. And once you know what you have and what you don't have, then you can build an AI factory that takes away all of the hard labor and all of the repetitive labor and the things that are breaking people's backs to work at, and you just create AIs that automate things and get things done easily and effortlessly. It's all future stuff. The point is, you touched on, what do we already have? What are our tools? Let's survey our resources. Now, we're not talking about shoes and clothes at this time, because that was just part of my story where people got a reality check of, just what would it look like to survey our resources. But you're talking about tools. So, in order for us to build new tools, let's make sure that we survey our resources. And so when people come into this Omnopoly game, and we're playing in a spiral way, and we're playing in a circular way, and we're including everyone, this gets back to our Thursday talk of what are your resources that you can bring to this Omnopoly game. And that's where people that's where the conversation happens, because people aren't just listening. I keep going back to Michael Tellinger, because he was in my email yesterday at the same time that Jamin's first presentation of this came out. And Michael Tellinger was asking for support for his organization to keep the One Small Town idea going. And if you look at his One Small Town idea, there's a lot of validity there about what would we do to rebuild towns and how small we could start, and the whole thing. But anyway, Michael Tellinger's been trying to be listened to for a really, really long time, and people aren't hearing him either. So what if he were on our Thursday call and people came on just to listen to him, and he gave us the resources he has to help us keep building? And that's only one of millions. There's so many people out there. I put in the chat the Oravana project that's going on in Brazil right now. The guy who started that is also on my radio show. His name is Travis Grant. And then Copiosis is a whole different money system based on people doing good stuff. There's just, like you keep saying, Michael, so much is already out there. So let's survey what we've got.
Yeah, great point. I love it. And you're also reminding me of another key element in this, and it would come after what you're saying, after surveying the resources. But we're also recognizing that there's all this happening out there, and that it's hard to keep track of it all. There's so many projects, and people are looking for more resources. And this is another important element that's emerging now, that it's a solution, or at least a sub-solution to other solutions, is this term called interoperability. Mm-hmm. Meaning that, in the past, we would have all these silos of projects, like this person's got this project, and there's this whole community around it. This community, loves this project, and there's a silo over here, and there's all these silos, projects that are all good and they could all benefit from each other, but then how do they actually share resources? And that's some of what's happening in this new economy emerging and powered by cryptocurrencies and things like that, is being able to, you know, have ways of transferring value and resources in an interoperable way that naturally translates automatically with automation. You know, that's key too. So it's very efficient. Anyways, hey, this has been great. I'm going to bounce off and go get some food. Your soup pictures are still in my mind. I'm like, oh, lentil soup. It is. It's, I think starting with food is just great. You know, everyone loves it. Everyone needs it. It's the place to start. You know, after air. But
some people call it plug in the computer. Plug in the computer. We're all computers. We want to compute.
Got to recharge.
Got to recharge. So,
yeah.
Bon appetit, and great to see you, Michael. Thank you so much for coming and enriching the conversation. Thanks to everyone. What an amazing, and we'll see you next time. Thursday, we'll be back on this conversation at 11.
Hey,
Pacific,
Michael.
So.
Yeah.
I would like I would like a Thursday meeting to be about some other people and their technological advances they're making. It'd be so awesome, because when we start having groups like that for people to listen to, people will come on and it'll start the circle moving. But so if you can get a couple people on Thursday's call just about, you know, the geek stuff they're doing, things they're working on, that give us some hope, give us some reality checks about what people are really inventing, what's really going on. It could cause a lot of excitement. I'd love to see that on Thursday's call. So if you want to invite anybody, you know, in your arena in there, that would be awesome.
Okay, I'll keep that on my mind.
And they get to be listened to.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Thanks.
See you next time, guys.
Awesome.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
See you soon. Wow.
Wow. You know what? I have this expression that I use. I always get the best of the best. You know, whenever I'm on any project or I'm doing anything, or I always get the best of the best. And we have the best of the best here. I mean, wow.
And we're just getting started. You remember like that black and white picture of the original 8 people working on the Mac project? You know, these young smiley faces, right?
Yeah.
That's like us. Or the original Microsoft picture, you know, they had long hair and beards and stuff like that, you know, looking all goofy. That's us. Yeah. Long hair, beards. Look at Marco. He's got him. He's got it all. So, you know, welcome to the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. And as I kept plugging all day, come to the Thursday call to be listened to.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. And I also like your idea, Ananda, of starting with the solutions. Maybe start with the synthesis. Maybe at the beginning of every meeting, hey, here's the current, you know, winning, for lack of a better word, 30-second synthesis. It's not one winner. It's not this, but no, it's the synthesis of all of us, you know, hashing it out. And, you know, maybe using, you know, some kind of fluid democracy system, kind of like what Michael was talking about, which there are open source off the shelf versions that we can just download. Right?
Well, sociocracy is the one area where I go to, and it's circular economy, it's circular discussion. There is no hierarchy. There is no bully. No one gets to dominate the whole conversation. We do that very much here. We pass the feather and we talk in circles. That's ancient indigenous, you know, ways. But sociocracy is a studied actual process. Has been around for about 40 years. It teaches people, many people call it the new democracy. So, you know, it'd be really cool to have John Buck on here someday talking about how he invented sociocracy. And wow.
Heck yeah. You know, one of the things I was thinking, oh, Marco's got his hand up. Go ahead, Marco.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going? I've been practicing my I have 2 ears and 1 mouth, more listening today than talking. But I like the idea you just came on, Jamen. I want to make sure I understand it because it's what I've been thinking too. It's like, every meeting we need to start showing some documentation of we've been doing more than talking, that we're making progress. We need progress updates. This actually happened. We're making progress. People need to start seeing the progress, or we're going to lose, important people, or maybe not attract more important people. Everybody likes the good talk, but we need to start showing some progress. I know
Absolutely.
for
Absolutely, Marco.
For most of us here, I mean, we I think see bigger pictures, conceptualize a little more than maybe the average person. So, but we need everybody. We need every super smart person, every average person, because everybody is a worthwhile being. And for some, they really need to see those concrete visions of progress. There has to be something tangible so that we keep them on board.
Yeah, and I think those need to come out right up front, right in the beginning, so that our discussion can be around what we're doing. Because all of the discussions we had today were beautiful, but they all led up to what we're doing. And so let's talk about what we're doing first and let the conversations unravel from there about how can we, not how we can't, how can we implement this new game? I love it that Michael wants to talk about getting his techie people together to actually make a game.
Yeah, Michael's pretty talented. I got to see one of his projects. Wow, it's been actually months ago now on one of the block parties. We were in a breakout room together, and he does some pretty impressive computer stuff.
Yeah, he's been a regular contributor on the Friday block party going back months ago. He would have his 2-hour Michael Gaio segment, and he had a whole following that would come just for his stuff. And now think about it now. With the city, ICIC properly laid out, properly organized, there could be hundreds of breakout rooms, hundreds of meetings going on at once, right? And
Yeah.
part of the hub is just directing traffic. Oh, you're a permaculture person? Here, go to coordinate, 2, 3. Boop, boop, boop. There you go. Great. You'll find your people there.
I'd like to share my screen for a minute if I can.
Oh, yeah. Here, let me make sure that you are. You're already co-host, so you can definitely do that.
Oh, okay.
Now we can't hear what he's saying.
Oh, you can't?
No, what you have to do is you have to pause the video, stop screen share, and then start over. But this time I'll walk you through it, exactly what you need to do.
Okay, so
stop screen share.
Control. FarmBot precisely sows seeds.
Let me just.
Yeah, you might want to full screen because we see all this junk on top.
Based on its type, age, soil conditions, and more.
Full screen here.
Using the onboard camera and advanced computer vision, FarmBot can scan your garden to detect weeds and then take action immediately.
There should be a little image in the lower right of the screen.
Phone, tablet, or computer. No coding is required. Using the Farm Designer, you can lay out your plants like a video game, and with built-in data for common garden veggies, you'll be guided through creating an optimal layout each season. Our custom sequence editor, the current food production system,
here we go. Can you hear now?
is broken.
Yeah.
Individuals, families, and communities no longer have control over how their food is being produced, and as a result, our health and the environment is in jeopardy. Let's take back control. FarmBot is humanity's open source CNC farming machine that automatically grows food for you right in your backyard, keeping you in complete control. FarmBot precisely sows seeds in any pattern you want and then waters each plant based on its type, age, soil conditions, and more. Using the onboard camera and advanced computer vision, FarmBot can scan your garden to detect weeds and then take action immediately. You can monitor your garden and plan the season from any phone, tablet, or computer. No coding is required. Using the Farm Designer, you can lay out your plants like a video game, and with built-in data for common garden veggies, you'll be guided through creating an optimal layout each season. Our custom sequence editor offers a no-code programming environment that anyone can use, even young and non-technical users, to program their device to take care of plants just the way you want. And with support for variables and traditional programming logic, power users can explore complete freedom and control. We've gone to great lengths to design, manufacture, and source only the highest quality components. And because everything is made from corrosion-resistant aluminum, stainless steel, and UV-resistant plastics, FarmBot can be placed indoors, in a greenhouse, or outside. We've come a long way since the 3D printed prototypes from years past. Meanwhile, the brains of the FarmBot are Raspberry Pi computers and our custom-designed Farmduino microcontrollers. Combined with powerful stepper motors and trinamic drivers, FarmBot can position the toolhead with millimeter accuracy. We offer FarmBot in two models. FarmBot Genesis is our top-of-the-line, fully customizable kit, suitable for cutting-edge research and high-end gardening. The universal tool mounting system allows Genesis to automatically switch tools for different jobs. Included are the seeding, watering, weeding, and soil sensor tools, and new additions are in development. Meanwhile, our FarmBot Express line is designed and built for everyone. Coming 95% pre-assembled in the box, Express models are ready to be set up quickly and easily and perform the basic functions needed to grow a garden. Our Express kits are the most affordable FarmBots we've ever created, with the aim of bringing this technology to as many people as possible. Both FarmBot Genesis and Express come in a standard size that's perfect for backyards, classrooms, and research labs, as well as XL sizes, good for families, school atriums, and experimental production. To date, we've shipped nearly 2,000 FarmBots to customers in 75 countries. In schools, FarmBot serves as a practical, engaging, and fun hands-on tool for teaching and learning robotics, agriculture, biology, and many other STEM subjects. Whether it's an elementary student's first time working with a real robot, or a graduate student developing the next innovation in agriculture, FarmBot is inspiring the next generation of farmers with educational experiences and research opportunities like no other. At home, FarmBot is used to grow veggies automatically, freeing you from the need to tend to the garden when going on vacation or when life gets busy. Plus, with FarmBot under your full control, you can rest assured that the quality and freshness of your produce will be second to none. And on the cutting edge of the future of agriculture, researchers around the world are using FarmBot to automate and run experiments on new varieties, inputs, and growing methods. Even NASA is looking into how FarmBot can be used to grow food in space and on the Moon and Mars. All of this incredible innovation is because FarmBot is 100% open source. That means that all of our 3D CAD models, software, and documentation is available online for free for everyone to modify and use for any purpose. Want to design your own tools to give FarmBot new capabilities? Go right ahead. Inspired to go off-grid with solar power and a custom power supply? You can do that. You could even develop completely new versions of the FarmBot based on our existing library of components. We want you to join our community of DIY food enthusiasts all over the world who are helping us build the open food future. So check out our website to order your FarmBot, and together, let's take back control of our food. Thank you.
Wow.
Yep.
Incredible.
Okay, so now here's the really cool thing. The reason I'm here on this land in this ranch doing the work that I'm doing is the guy that I'm, working with and for. He invented what's called cube spawn. And cube spawn, do you know about cube spawn?
Only from you, but I don't know details. I just know the name.
Well, cube spawn can manufacture all those parts from FarmBot, and you could put a cube spawn in somewhere in Africa. It's 2-foot metal cube that has different elements in it for manufacturing, like a CNC machine, a 3D printer, a chop saw, a lathe, a mill. All of those things go in the squares of cube spawn, and you can have a cube spawn with 6 or 7 cubes attached and have a complete manufacturing company, and you can make all the parts for your FarmBot right where you are. And so it cuts down on the massive expense of shipping, because really all your shipping is the software of the template to the people who have the FarmBot, collection. Not the FarmBot, but the cube spawn collection. So, food first. Okay. Let's do that.
Wow. Wow. Super cool. Super cool. Just one footnote there is, remember the images I was showing of how you can get lentils for 6.5 cents a pound. Now that's if you're buying from these giant mega farms up in Saskatchewan, right? So a basic rule of thumb, if you're looking for big bulk items like train loads of lentils, train loads of brown rice, train loads of potatoes, that's kind of modern mass scale agriculture. If you're looking for super nutritious produce, stuff that's green and red and orange, and that's, perishable, brown rice, legumes can last for years, literally. But produce, you want to eat it within minutes, ideally. And so there's this nice chocolate and peanut butter combination of grains, potatoes, legumes, pasta, stuff that's grown at big scale, combined with your ultra nutritious. See, that's where you get your carbohydrates, your protein, fiber, etc., big scale stuff. But the vitamins and nutrients and living organisms and all that, that's local FarmBot produce. So just think of those two going together.
Yeah, I thought of that, and I thought, well, okay, if we're coming back with tools for people about how to solve that first triangle of the pie, give them cube spawn to be able to manufacture their own parts, give them well, first of all, if FarmBot is open source, cube spawn can order all of those designs. So all you need is cube spawn and some seeds. That's putting food first.
Absolutely. But we also need a program like Food Healers, because the reality is that 99% of the people on the planet do not own land. So as much as they would love to have a FarmBot system growing food, they don't have a square foot of soil upon which to work. So it's oh no, and I know I'm just saying really because we're recording.
I said there you go. You're right. Absolutely.
Sorry.
Let's put them all together.
Put it all together, because with Food Healers, people will be donating. Everyone from the poorest recipient of the food digging into their pocket and throwing in pennies, to the multi-billionaire who says, wow, this is it. Here's $1 billion. Go replicate this everywhere. Right. It's all about putting the pieces together. It's Omnopoly in action. Put the pieces
Or
together, synthesize it all, and voila.
everyone puts in a buck.
Or $1 billion if you got it, or a couple of pennies if that's all you got, or nothing if you ain't got jack. Just eat the food. We're here to serve you.
Yeah. Okay, then. Done.
I think we're done. All right, everyone. This concludes the last segment on ICIC. We're done. Now it's
We're
all
done.
about implementation.
Yep.
Let's close down the city, recycle it, and it's off to implementation back on Earth.
Yep. Well,
This whole day today has just been a perfect expression of ICIC. And if we can get this far in a couple of weeks, imagine what we can do in a couple of months as this grows exponentially.
dude, this hasn't even been 2 weeks yet.
I know.
Just
I know.
saying. I mean, we're into it about 10 days.
Exactly.
So let's keep going with that. I want to
You
get
know,
people on here and get them heard. I want the conversation
know-
from the Michael Tellingers and the Perry Grubers and the people, all of Michael's friends. Get them on here.
Totally. You know what this is like? This is like Landmark. You're the proverbial wise person in the high chair in the front of the room. I'm
Been
kind
there,
of like
done that.
I'm guarding the door and smiling at people as they come in, and whoever comes in, we just make magic out of whoever comes in. Like
And they all
Marco
end up
was
on
got-
the same page when they're done.
Exactly.
Isn't that amazing how that happens every single time? I
Oh
mean,
my
you get this audience full of strangers that don't know each other, and by Sunday night they're hugging and crying.
See, Landmark was kind of the original city in the clouds, except it happened in a big room instead of up on some cloud. But who cares? It's the right formula. Add people plus formula equals magic. I think we've got the right formula for saving life on Earth. They've got the right formula for transforming 150 lives and their families in a weekend. We've got the right formula for transforming life on Earth in like a couple of weeks.
Yep, there you go. Well,
and speaking of transformation, Marco's got his hand up. Marco, what you got?
yay.
Yeah, also, this I love the enthusiasm and the progress we've made in the last, couple weeks, 10 days, whatever you want to call it. But let's never lose sight of the shoulders we stand on. The 7 or so years Jamin's had Radish and been working towards this goal, and all the other people that have been here in off and on and in and out, and everybody deserves credit.
Everybody deserves to be listened to.
That's it. Share the food, share the credit, share the currency, share the talking feather, including yourself, Marco. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for you.
That's
Because when
right.
Ananda first came here, she didn't meet Jamin, and she did not meet an empty room. She met you, Marco, and you're consistently here, like, Samson holding up, the temple, often by yourself.
And it's really cool that Alan's come on board, because he's been here a lot the last few days. So I think Alan, you're going to be a very great addition to the team.
Heck yeah. 3 cheers for Alan. Scotland in the house. And Christopher up in Canada.
Yeah.
Let's not forget Christopher for months there, holding it up with you, Marco. Now it's Marco and Alan are the two superheroes holding up the temple at all hours. So thank you both.
Yeah. Christopher pulled a lot of extra duty, like when I was in the hospital and recovering there.
Bless you.
So yeah, no, it's this is pretty amazing. We're on the right track. And the farm bot, I see especially useful for handicapped people being able to grow their own food.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the step that comes before the farm bot is the cube spine.
Yeah, cube spawn I haven't looked into very much yet, but the farm bot's been kind of rattling around in my head that I think there's some pretty awesome ways to use that I haven't thought of yet.
Next time we come, I'll share a video with you about cube spawn. It's just no accident that I'm here on this land in this ranch, doing the promotion for cube spawn, because it's been in the making for 15 years and it's about ready to spawn. And I get to be a part of all of that. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I actually cube spawn is I've heard the name before, but never actually knew what it was until you told us on this. So that's cool.
Well, they're on Facebook. Check them out on Facebook. That's the best place. His website needs to be revamped, but I get to be on the property with this guy every day. Every day I have dinner with him. Every day we cross each other on the path of, run into each other in the hallway or out on the land or whatever. And you can just get him talking, and he's one of those guys that needs to be listened to, and he's genius. He's absolute genius. His name is James Jones, and he invented all of this, and his target is not the big manufacturers. His target is to get cube spawn out into the world, so all they have to do is order the software and they can manufacture anything they need to manufacture. Can you imagine what will happen with the shipping industry? Just that, take that alone. That instead of shipping the goods, you just ship, you just email somebody the formula for the 3D printer to print this part.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be a big part of decentralization.
Decentralization.
I don't think people realize the power of decentralization. I mean, I dream about it. It's, it's like with food healers too. I know there's a certain element where, to get started and buy in the large quantities and do all that, but at some point it needs to become more decentralized. We need more healthy food grown in the communities where they're consumed. We need much more local production and consumption. Our just it's another one of those just because we can doesn't mean we should lessons. Just because we can build big huge ships that'll hold a city worth of people and carry stuff from one side of the world to the other doesn't mean it's a good idea. It's proven it's not a good idea. Right. I mean, we literally, the big lie of plastic recycling is the modest amount of plastic recycling that's been done for the United States is we bail up all our dirty plastic. We don't even, have guidelines to make it clean, send it to China, where China actually does the recycling and then sends things back to us, except it's already been, I lose track of time sometimes. It's been at least a year, 2, maybe 3, 4, or 5 that China already has quit accepting any plastic from anywhere else in the world because they started making plenty of their own and they were tired of the shitty, dirty plastic we were sending them.
Yeah, well, cube spawn has a big part in playing how to recycle things on your own property and turn them into product.
Yeah, that's
you
awesome.
Can do that right on your own backyard or in your garage, any place where you have room for 6 cubes. You've got your milling, you've got your lathe, you've got the plastic recycling reverter machines, you've got 3D. All of those are in 2-foot cubes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I know. So I gotta pinch myself, I'm just so lucky to be here. And I'm trading my skills in promoting this guy for free room and board so I can afford to do things like this, and I don't have to go out and make my rent so I can be on the computer to do things and change the world. It's just all blessing, it's a big blessing.
Yeah. Very, very fortunate. A blessing for you, a blessing for us that you found us.
Yeah. And I get to use my wisdom here. That is just so cool. I get listened to.
the cool thing is we're kind of like, you know, the first humans on what would become the island of Hong Kong, right? The island part of Hong Kong, not the mainland Kowloon part, but the island part. You know, somebody had to be first. You know, somebody rode into a canoe and got there and said, well, this is kind of a nice little hill. Fast forward, and zoom, it just exploded into the commercial center, the gateway to Asia, this incredible melting pot. And we're just kind of like the first, you know, hominids, you know, who just showed up here at ICIC. We're kind of looking at each other saying, this is kind of a cool little island up in the clouds. Shall we, I don't know, like have a conversation? Sure. And boom. Welcome to the Hong Kong of global transformation.
Well, as you know, Jacques Fresco's designs are in pie shapes, and you can build one unit at a time until you have a whole city. But one of the things he talks about is that once the cities reach a certain capacity, then you start another one. So, you know, this Zoom call can only hold so many people. And once it gets a capacity, then you start another portion of the city. And that's how we're going to be able to handle the millions of people that are waiting to come in, is that all small groups that are local, you know, whatever this little pie area is that we can hold on this website or on this Zoom call is one segment of the pie. And when it gets a capacity, then you start another segment and you show people how to do that one. You show them the tools they need, you know, to run the game right. And, you know, Michael will produce the game board basically. And people, it can just go on to infinity like that. You know, I was looking at the picture with all those thousands of people holding up that human tower. And it's like, that's us. But we're not going to have everybody on the same Zoom call. You're going to have your own little local area to work in. And then when that gets the capacity, there's another local area that works on theirs. And then when you get a full circle going, then you create another whole circle with instructions about how to do it and with tools about what they need to make it happen. I'm just saying. So, you know, the first of this conversation started off with the whole money conversation. And we hate that conversation because, you know, we know full well that money doesn't really serve us. You know, it's made slaves out of us and the whole thing. But the thing is that if in our toolbox, we say, so this is how we set up our local city, our local pie. We just started a fund. You don't need to get your grungies in a knot about it. We're not talking about money. Just go ahead and do your $1 a month and put it aside on auto pay so you don't have to keep thinking about it. Now let's get back to the process and see what happens. And then while we're sitting here talking about procedure and process and giving people tools, people are coming in with their little tiny donations. Like, don't make it a big deal. Don't give it any energy. Just put it on automatic. You know, pretty soon we'll have money to make decisions with. So we get to come to our little community one time and we say, guess what? We've got $1 million this month to make decisions with. What should we do? Should we buy a bunch of farm bots or a bunch of cube spawns and get people out there gardening? What should we do with this money? We'll have money to make decisions with. But the emphasis isn't on fundraising every single time. I was part of a spiritual community that I loved so much when I was a young mom and raising my children. And I was so in love with the spiritual community, but they were always after me for more and more money, more and more every single time. It was like, more and more money. Well, we don't have to do that here. We just go, okay, just do your $1 a month, get over it. And then now, well, let's keep talking about our plans. And in the meantime, our little $1 a month thing's growing and growing and growing. And then we'll have a surplus of money where we can one day come, it'll be all transparent. Somebody will track it. Somebody will, you know, monitor it, the whole thing. And we'll come on one day and our friend, you know, Cate, she's our monitor, and she comes on and says, well, guess what? While you guys were doing all this planning and growing and implementing and all this, we've been collecting money. And this week, our discussions about how do we spend $1 million. Oh, cool.
I have to get going in a
Me
few
too.
minutes here. But I do want to say about money, and then Marco's got his hand up. We spent most of the first couple hours of this meeting talking about money, and for me, it totally just burned me out. I'm kind of surprised I made it through the rest of it. So what I'd like to propose is that we not use our best time talking about money, maybe an hour in the afternoon every time, so we can just, and we just be very disciplined about it. All right, for the next hour, we're going to talk about money, and let's do it as a separate recording so we don't, you know, mix it with the other really great creative stuff that everybody loves. And we'll just keep at it until we come up with whether we're going to do a money thing or not. And if so, how is it going to work? You know, I definitely get your perspective, Ananda. It's great ideas there. I've heard a lot of other great ideas, including some of my own. So let's just keep at it until we, you know, figure it out. But let's do it, I'd say, later in the session. Let's not
Yep.
burn our best time.
The first thing we do is we present the game plan and the idea, so that most of the conversations around that. And by the end of the conversation, people will be so in love with it. Then we just mention the money. They'll just say, well, then good. What's the PayPal number, or what's the Patreon number? And let's just keep going then. You know, it's such a small little thing after everybody's already in love with it. People have been heard, ideas are flying, and people are connecting, and we're seeing, you know, results like what people are doing, like they show us their farm bot video or whatever, and everybody's all in love with it. And then money's not the main important thing. I agree. We're learning.
That I can support. All right, and
We'll
Marco just
support
had his
that.
hand up, and then
Yeah.
after Marco, I'm going to have to cut and run. So Marco,
Me too.
Awesome.
go.
Awesome. I love it. You guys are just honed in on the thing that's been kind of poking at me in the back of my mind is the whole money thing. And you know, I've seen so many people saying, help support our sustainable community. We need donations. Well, if you need support, you're not sustainable. You know, and they and all these great projects all over the world, you know, sustainable women of this island country have been doing so well for so long. They just need your dollars. And well, if you need our dollars, it's not sustainable. I mean, I understand startup to sustainable, but they go years and some of them decades accepting, you know, asking for and taking funds for their sustainable communities.
Wow, you got the nail on the head there. That's what I'm talking about. All right, you guys, thank you for everything. What you said last was really key and very important. And so, see you on Thursday.
Right.
Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific time, and I'll just say into the recording, everyone is welcome. Join us.
Totally.
Bye.
Thanks so much, everybody.
You're welcome.
Thank you both.
Bye-bye. Thank
See
you,
you all
Marco.
soon.
Bye-bye.